This morning it's my great pleasure to bring you the second sermon of the Christmas series, Hope Has a Name. And we'll be looking at a mighty God this morning. And in the book of Isaiah, it talks about the title of Jesus Christ our Lord. And there are a few titles there: a Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. And this morning, we'll be focusing on Mighty God, this title. We'll be looking at His mighty power. Through the sermon, there are three questions I want to seek answers this morning. The first question is, how can we find hope in the mighty power of God in the midst of darkness? Second question I want to find answer is, how we can find hope in God's mighty doing in the midst of an unforgiving circumstance. The third question I want to find answer is, how can we find hope in God's mighty planning when we are living in a world so chaotic? Now, when God's mighty power, His mighty planning, and His mighty doing come together, when they cross paths, you see no less than a miracle in your life. That's what I want to look at this morning. Now, when we hear the Gospel of John, the first chapter, it resembles so much the first chapter of the Gospel of John. There are a lot of similarity there. And this is how the book of Genesis starts. You cannot look at Genesis when you look at John chapter 1. That's what it said, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. In the beginning, that means before time exists, God was already there. And the earth was formless and empty. It means it was chaos, unpredictable. There's no form we can catch, and there's no life, because it's not ready to sustain anything. Now let me ask you all a question. Now put your hand up if you ever have the pleasure of witnessing the bedrooms of a teenager. Put your hand up if you ever has the pleasure to actually witness the condition of a teenager's bedroom. Now, when you walk in a teenager's bedroom, you open the door, you look around, things are everywhere. You find clothes, you find drinks, you find tissue papers, sometimes rotted food if you're not lucky. So as a parent, what will you do? Well, the first thing you do is to declutter them, and then you put things back to where it should be, and then you open the window, let the fresh air in and push the air out to the other side. And then some parents, they might be determined enough to pick up the vacuum cleaner and vacuum the floor. And then after you have done everything, you look at the room, it tastes good. And then when your children come back from school, they look at the room, they walk in and straight out, and they said to you, "Dad, did you mess up my room?" Well, how good is that? Oh, I thought I was trying to make sure your room is habitable. That was my purpose. It was chaos. But the same thing happened when God entered the world. When God was on the earth, He looks around. This is chaos. It is formless. It's not functional. It cannot sustain any life. So from there, out of chaos, He uses almighty power to create the world, put things back into order so they can function and work in harmony. That's the idea of Genesis. Not so much about science, if you think, but it's about how God brings order from chaos, from disarray, from the world that He saw at that time. And what did God create on the first day? It was time. It wasn't light. It was time that God created. First thing God created wasn't the light, because the sun was created on the fourth day. God Himself is the light source. He created the first thing He created was time. That's why at the end He said there was evening and there was morning. That's the first day. He created time, put things in order out of disorder. Now, and then later on, He created things like weather, air, water, creatures, humanities, plants and everything. Make seasons, make time. So what it does is He created the order in the world so things can work and support one another instead of working against one another. That's how He sustains life. That's how He makes the world work. And then after He has done the creation, He sat there and looked at it and said, it was good. Now, it was from here the book of John started the gospel. He said, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and through Him all things were made. Without Him, nothing was made that has been made. Obviously, the author pretty much borrowed the whole thing from the Old Testament and put it in the beginning of the gospel. There's a reason behind, because there were two types of audience. There were two types of faith seekers He's targeting. The first one is a Jewish faith seeker. So they have that history of the creation stories in their head. So what the author was trying to do is to help them relate back to a story that they already know. So because they heard a familiar story, and they wonder, well, who is this God of creation? It is the God they have been following. It is the God who have taken them out of Egypt. So they know the story. So that is for the Jewish audience. Now, there is another group. They are the Greek-speaking, the Greek faith seeker. Now, they don't actually have the Jewish tradition. They would not have any clue who this Jesus is. They don't even know the story of creation, because that's not their story. So what John did was he changed the word from Jesus, from God, to the Word. In the beginnings, there was Word, and that is logos in Greek. So what does logos mean? Well, logos is a very common word in the Greek philosophy. They use it all the time. It means philosophy, logic, thinking, and reasoning. Because that's what the Greek like. They like logic, they like philosophy. And the world that they are living in is highly volatile, highly unpredictable, highly chaotic. It's not much difference from the world that we are living in. You know, one pandemic gone, there will be another one coming in the future. One person die, another person leave. One war got settled, the other war will rise. That's life here. But from the Greek, when they look at the world, they observe God's creation. They see life and death. They see how human beings operate in a complex world. They come up with this. There's got to be an intellectual being upstairs, beyond the world, control everything. Because while they're in so much chaos, the world is still going and running. So in the Greek, a faith-seeking mind, they thought there got to be something higher intellectual, up there, controlling the world. And what the book of John was saying is, well, that logos you're after, that intellectual being above you, is Jesus Christ, the Lord, who created heaven and earth, who in the beginning bring things into order out of chaos and disarray. That's what he is trying to tell the Greek faith seeker. There is a God, and in Jesus there was life. Life was the light of all mankind, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The difference is, in the book of creation, in the first chapter, it obviously talks about the creation of the world. But in John, he doesn't use it to talk about creation. But instead, he wants to talk about life. The life that he refers to is the life that we are living now, the present life. He's talking about out of our chaotic world, how unpredictable, how unforgiving it can be, how to live a life that you can see the light of Jesus, and how Jesus' life impacts you, how this light can shine in darkness, and darkness cannot overcome it. And that's what John wants to tell the Greek audience, what Jesus can do in our life. Now, you know, in Christmas, 3 words we preach all the time. That's hope, peace, and joy. These 3 words is the buzzword for Christmas. We talk about it all the time. Now, the thing is, when I talk about the world that we are living in is unpredictable, it's chaos, it's unforgiving, what does it mean by that? What I mean is hope, peace, and joy, they come and go. Sometimes they come easily. but they also go very quickly, beyond your imagination. One moment you get one of them, next moment you lose all three of them. That's how lives turn out. So in the midst of a life that is so chaotic, how can we survive? With hope disappears when you run out of means. Do you know that? Hope disappears when you run out of means. What does it mean by that? Well, last week my sister-in-law, she told me she has been coughing. She's been coughing for 6 months. And then she went for a medical check, medical examinations. And then they told her, well, you have got stage 4 lung cancer. And then she went for more medical check. And then the final diagnosis was Hodgkin lymphoma, which is a much more treatable condition. And that gave her hopes, because now she has got the means. It's a curable cancer. And she texted me a message and said to me, well, I'm having Hodgkin lymphoma. It's very treatable, no worries. Smiley emoji, prayer hands in the message. You can see how hopeful she is, because there is means. And obviously, she has done her research. She knows what she's getting into. And then she told me, I'm going to chemo next week. No problem, we'll be fine. No sense of sadness. Why? Because she knows there is means. There is hope. Our hope disappears when we run out of means. If someone tells you there's no cure, treasure every moment you have got now. Your heart sinks, isn't it? Because you know you don't have means. But hope reappears when you have means. What about peace then? Well, peace disappears when you run out of backups. Peace disappears when you run out of backups. What does it mean? Well, let me ask you one question. Can anyone guess the word peace, which industry use it most? Which industry use the word peace most? Have a guess. Military, not sure. Do they want peace? I think they probably want. Definitely, military. Yeah? What is the industry that speaks the word peace all the time? I think it's the insurance company. Peace of mind. You want to have it when you need it most. Insurance protection. One of the person I met recently, he's on income protection. And over his life, he has multiple transplants. And recently, he has one of his legs chopped off. He becomes an amputee. And that insurance, that income protection, get him through. He has got that peace of mind because he knows there is backup. There's someone there he can still draw on. Peace disappears when you run out of backups. Think about this. If your house is burned down because of a leaven bacteria or something, there is a massive difference in the sense of your peace if you have content insurance or building insurance compared to those who hasn't got any insurance. Peace reappears when you know you have got backup. Now, what about joy? Well, joy disappears in the midst of darkness. When life becomes very unforgiving, that's when joy disappears. Now, recently we have a family who are now in and out of the hospital. And with the permission, I can share this with you. So what happened is their daughter, a young adult, she went to a public event and she took a pill. Someone gave her a pill and she took it. And so did everyone else in her group. And she was the only one reacted to it. And at the end now, she has been in ICU for 2 weeks now, unconscious, in coma. Life has been very unforgiving. She was right there for the whole 2 weeks in coma. No one else reacted, but she reacted to it. 2 doctors specialized in ICU said to the parents, in this kind of situation, most likely she will go down then go up. In other words, she cannot be healed. Of course, they were devastated, very discouraged. And then the 3rd doctor came in and said, well, there might be a slim hope there, positive, but not a lot of hope either. So in the midst of darkness, you lose joy. You lose a lot of joy. How can you handle it? Well, I think when you're in the midst of darkness, when you run out of means, when you run out of backups, your joy is not existing. Your peace evading you. And your hope slipping out of your hand. What can you do? How can you find your hope, peace, and joy from God? And I think the mightiness of God has an answer for you. It's because of the mightiness of God you can find your peace, hope, and joy back. One of the questions this family asks is, well, is my daughter saved? Is my daughter saved? That's the question they want to ask in the first place. Well, that's very important for them because they moved to another church and their daughter actually go to another church, but eventually she didn't go. So a fundamental question they really want to find answer is, well, is she saved? She's not conscious. She cannot answer that question. And they were worried about it. Their friends, their visiting friends told them their daughter prayed for them, asked them to trust the Lord in time of troubles. Well, that answer gives them a lot of reassurance because they know their daughter trusts the Lord. They know their daughter believes and prays to the Lord. Well, that gives them a lot of certainty where their daughter will go if the most undesirable, most unforgiving outcome turn out. For them, if this question left unanswered, it will be traumatic to them, hugely traumatic to them. But what now they know is there is a backup. If anything fails, they already know. If the doctor cannot hold on to her, God has got her. I think that's the peace they can have, is the backup, knowing that either way, if their daughter goes to heaven, she will be there. That's give them the peace, and that's the backup that they need. What about hope then? What about hope? Hope disappears when you run out of means. But two daughters came right in front of you and say, well, it cannot be healed. Now before, when my sister-in-law, she hear, oh, this is a curable condition, now you have got means. She probably has done some research into that kind of cancer and knowing what kind of treatment she can get. Knowledge gives you hope sometimes. It alleviates your pressure and stress. But have you ever wondered, knowledge can take away your hope? Or knowledge can actually bias your prayer? Well, if two specialists in ICU, they both tell you she's not going to be healed, the chance of she coming back and regain consciousness is very slim. How are you going to pray? What are you going to pray? You're going to pray, perhaps, have better terminal care. You might be praying, take away the pain, give her more comfort. No, you're going to pray a sensible prayer because you have been told she cannot be healed. So you're praying to that direction. But for those people who trust God, who believe God can do bigger things, they will pray for healing, even though the reality, the expertise are telling them she is not going to be healed. They pray the opposite direction. They pray the complete opposite to what a normal human will think. They don't surrender to the reality, but surrender to God's power. The question is, if the doctor said the prognosis is bleak and doom, why would you pray to God? There is an answer there in the book. It said, through him, all things were made. Through Jesus Christ, everything was made, including human beings. Our Lord Jesus Christ made the world, and he knows how your body functions and operates. So what does it mean is, if you want to pray for healing, of course you go back to the manufacturer, the designer of your body, the creator of your body, to ask for healing, will you? You won't go any further. A while ago, we have to send off a health device to South Australia for a repair because someone's damaged it. And they couldn't do it. So they had to send it to the manufacturer in Canada. It was a long wait before that equipment come back to us. When the equipment come back, the conditions, the operation side of it was so much better. Now we learn the manufacturer, even though a long ways, they do a much better job. It was an agonizing wait for the family because she's not waking up. They have to wait. But in the midst of that waiting, patience is what they need. And they remember Psalms 46, verse 10. Anyone remember what it says? Be still, so you know He is God. So they wait and wait. Wait for God. They want to find hope in God, and their hope is actually in God. He has the means to do the repair. He has the means to heal, but not any other people, because they already say there's no way she can come back. So they pray. For them, their hope rests in Jesus Christ, because either one way or the other, either God bring her back to life or God take her back to home. On either side of the fence, they are going to win anyway. They will claim victory. So for them, that is where they hope, because they know she believes in Jesus. Whichever way she travels, it will be in God's hand. They win regardless where she goes. What about joy? Well, what about joy when you are in the midst of darkness, when you're in such an unforgiving condition? Joy will appear when you see the mighty planning of God. Remember, I said what God created in the first day, it was not light, it was time, because He's already the light. God created time. Not only that, timing is everything. So they know their daughter was about to go to Japan for an internship training or job. What happened last few weeks in Japan? There was an earthquake. So they thought, it might be better if she can't go. At least she's here and safe. And then the life group that they attend, one of the couples, they went on a caravan trip. They took a week off to go on a caravan trip. Early in their caravan trip, the caravan broke down. So they returned, only to realize they are in the hospital, the family. And one of them is a nurse. The wife is a nurse. She worked in a public hospital. So she was allowed to actually be the third visitor in ICU to be with them, to explain to them what happened and all the medical terminology and help them through their situation. You know, when you're in ICU, everything is buzzing in every single second. You hear so much noise there. And when you're looking at your loved ones, anything buzz, it kind of sets your heart pounding and sets your mind wandering. But she was right there in the midst of darkness. God sent an angel there to help them through this situation. And guess what? Last week, she woke up. She regained consciousness. That's unbelievable. One of the doctors said, well, this is a miracle. It's impossible. And she woke up. The first thing she asked her parents and the nurse and the staff there is, well, can I get my favorite drink and my favorite food? And she said she wanted to go for a swim in the context of an ICU. Well, that was a funny side and a joyful moment for the family and everyone. I said to the family, well, if she is asking for this kind of stuff, it's actually quite a promising sign of her recovery, isn't it? And last Thursday, when I was in the hospital for something else, for my other job, I feel so compelled to go over to their building, to ICU, to talk to them, to tell them this. I think you have received the biggest miracle you can ever ask for this Christmas. You can't ask for anything better than that. It's very unusual when people in the hospital are asked for their permission to share their testimony. Usually when they're out of the hospital, when they recover, I will ask that question. But I feel so compelled, I better ask them. Because I think their testimony ties into this morning so well. You find peace, joy, and hope in the mightiness of God for His greatest work to our life. How good is that for the parents and for this lady? There's no doubt it's a long road ahead for her, and things can turn easily and quickly. Remember, one moment you hold on to grace, you hold on to hope, peace, and joy. The next moment, it can easily slip away. But for this family, it doesn't matter because they know God has got her. Either way, whether she go to heaven or returning to the earth, they win. They claim victory in Jesus Christ. And I think that's amazing. And that's how the book of John finished full of grace and truth. The Word become flesh, made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. When this girl woke up, she said when she was in coma, she saw a white man. Well, I think she might mean a man in white instead. And what makes you remind of? The book of Revelation, the white throne, the white. Well, her mom believed, well, she must have encountered Jesus when she was in coma. Now, people will say, well, this is called ICU delirium, under the influence of drugs. Well, let's don't take away the glory of God. Let's don't make God's presence attribute to the side effects of drugs, because God is there to be with them. And this family want to tell us, well, they are very thankful for the prayer that they have received through the prayer group, the prayer team, through everyone who heard of their situation and prayed for them. Their source of joy come from the life group who give them meals during this critical time, to the nurse who actually accompanied them to ICU. And their peace come from the prayers that is their backup. And their hope is they know whichever way their daughter is traveling, whether better or worse, it will be fine, because God has already got them.